In this video, we're going to look at the top 5 most common questions that are asked in Deloitte interviews, and I'm going to help you plan fantastic answers that will demonstrate to Deloitte that you've got the qualities that they are looking for. So, the first question that comes up very regularly is a question around your strengths and your weaknesses. And so they're looking to see people that have the right strengths and are also aware of their weaknesses and are working to develop them. So let's start by looking at how you answer the strengths question. And there is a simple procedure I'm going to teach you that gives you a very good answer at this question. So the first thing you're going to make sure is that your strength is a genuine strength. You actually have to have this strength because there will be follow-up questions. And if you can't defend yourself against those follow-up questions, you're going to really struggle to come across as credible. So make sure it's a genuine strength, otherwise you'll be taken to pieces. So in order to get a really powerful answer in this, you're going to have some evidence. So the best answers stand out because they are evidence. It's not just you that thinks you have this strength, someone else agrees with it. But most importantly, your strength is highly relevant to the firm. So you're thinking carefully about all the strengths you have and picking the one that is most relevant because this is your opportunity to sell yourself to Deloitte. So a great example of how to structure your answer is like this. So one of my strengths that I look forward to bringing to Deloitte is my exceptional organizational skills. So you're directly linking it to the firm, and you've picked something that is obviously very important. If you're going into, say, accountancy, you're going to have to be organized. It's just not possible to be effective in the job otherwise. And then the next bit is so powerful. It's talking about you evidencing. So this is reflected in the reference from my former manager who stated that. So you could use a reference or you could use some sort of qualification or something tangible that says, I'm not the only person that thinks this is a strength. Someone else has independently verified it. So independent verification of your strengths really goes a long way to proving that you definitely have that, and it makes your answer stand out above the other strengths that they've heard. Now let's move on and look at weaknesses. And this is a question that you can blow up on. So pay attention and answer it very carefully. The first thing you have to do is make sure that the weakness is a real weakness. They want people who are reflective, so giving a fake weakness is not going to help you. And by a fake weakness, I mean something like, I'm too much of a perfectionist. Well, that's not really a weakness. That's you just bragging, and it shows an inability to be reflective. So don't go down the route of saying some rubbish like that. It has to actually be a weakness that could, in theory, cause problems and make you slightly less effective, but you're going to be doing something about it. So spend most of your time talking about what you're doing about it rather than going on at length about how it's going to be this massive problem that's going to make you very ineffective. But most importantly, definitely make sure it's something that Deloitte doesn't actually care very much about. If you pick a weakness that links to the job, it's going to really hurt your chances of getting it. So if you were to say something like, I've always hated maths and never really got it. So basically saying, I'm terrible at maths, but want to be an accountant and I hate numbers. That's, going to throw the whole interview and they'll just go interview someone else. And they know they're wasting their time from that point on. So your weakness has to be real and not important for the job. And the way that I would advise you can structure the question, so rather the answer, is one of the weaknesses I'm aware of is, then state your weakness, and then talk at length about what you're doing about it. The focus of this answer shouldn't be all about how this weakness is a big problem. It should be about what you're doing about it and how you're going to work with Deloitte to get over that weakness. And Deloitte is really amazing with the training that they provide. So if your weakness is a soft skill, you can talk about all of the soft skill training that Deloitte provides to their new hires. And so you're going to use Deloitte's systems to overcome your weakness. So the person interviewing you is going to think, by the time that we provided all this training and you're actually live on the job, this isn't going to be a problem. And so they're going to just get over that very quickly. So that's strengths and weaknesses. We're now going to look at the classic team questions. So much of the work that Deloitte does is collaborative. You can't, do an audit of a Fortune 500 company with one person. It's got to be collaborative. And so they're going to ask about working in teams. And there is a great system for answering these questions that I'm going to teach you. So good answers start with a genuine conflict. You have to actually have some serious problem in the team. If you've never experienced that and you say, I have never experienced any conflict in a team, it shows that you've got a lack of experience and you're going to struggle in the firm because you've not got all this previous experience to rely on. Make sure that your example has been professionally managed. Do not use an example where you did anything wrong. But the number one tip is make sure that the example you use for a problem in a team actually had the desired outcome at the end. So the route might have been a bit wobbly, but you got to the end and it was successful. A bad answer to the question starts with a disastrous conflict that just the whole team disintegrated, where you behaved unprofessionally, or worst of all, where you got a negative outcome. For example, it was handed in late. It achieved, if it was university, achieved a very low grade. Anything that's negative is going to reflect badly on you. It has to be a successful project. So this will inform how you pick which example you're going to use. And now, having picked the example, you're going to have to structure your answer. And the STAR technique is the right way to do it. So you've got situation, task, action, result. You remember it with the acronym STAR. And so situation is going to be really quick and snappy. You're going to just say, the problem was this. Someone in the team was missing deadlines. They weren't pulling their weight, basically. And you're just going to mention that very briefly. You're not going to focus endlessly on the problem. You're just going to state the problem was. Then you're going to talk about what the task is. So what did you actually need to achieve? What did success on this project look like? And what was the brief that you were given? Then you're going to move to talk about the action. So what did you actually do in order to get things back on track? What intervention did you put in that was responsible for this project being an ultimate success? And then the result, you talk about what success you had in the end. So how did the project succeed? How did it deliver the result that you were supposed to get? And I'll show you now what they're actually assessing on this question. So they want people who are solutions focused. So that's why you don't spend a long time talking about the problem and all the barriers. You spend most of the time talking about the solutions. They want people that find solutions, not that just find endless problems and get stuck and bogged down and never make any progress. They want people who've got high expectations, that you expect everyone in the team to pull together. You expect everyone to work at their best. That's just an expectation you have for everyone and yourself. That you support colleagues. If someone's behind because of something horrific, you're going to support them, and you don't mind that sometimes you're going to have to step in and offer some support. You might have to change the way that you plan something, modify the scope slightly so that you can have that ultimate success while being sensitive to your colleagues. And that you're also wanting to show that you get the best performance out of people, that you're maximizing everyone around you's performance. And most importantly, the project succeeded. So whenever you're answering this, you're always thinking about, what does Deloitte actually want in a person? They want people who are going to lead teams to success. They are always focused on successful projects being delivered on time, on budget, as they were described, as the vision for the project was. And so if you're hitting those requirements, you're going to be successful in this question. So let's move on and look at question 3, why Deloitte? This question is asked at all the big 4 companies and can be difficult because the temptation is to think that they're all basically the same, and they don't want to hear that. So you're going to be looking for any differences between Deloitte and the big 4. And so I've got some ideas for you. You can look at what they've done for corporate citizenship, so read their CSR reports and pick something that matches with your interests. So if you're really interested in environmental issues, look at what Deloitte is doing about environmental issues and link that to your interests. You can look at Deloitte University. That is one thing that I would say is quite unique, that they've formalized it into a university. They are very, very big on teaching and learning and professional development. It's an inclusive culture, and you can talk about their breakthrough labs and do some research on it. A great way to show off some knowledge and show you've really done your homework is to find a project or a case study about something that Deloitte's done and reference that to your interests and imagine yourself working in that project. Why would you really like that particular project? How does that interest you? Link everything to your personal interests and what you did at university and what you've done in your your personal life and your professional life to date. Look at Deloitte University in great detail and think about your future career plans. How is Deloitte going to provide the training and development that's going to get you to where you ultimately want to be? And most importantly, they are looking for people that are going to be enthusiastic, that you're actually really, really, really interested in joining Deloitte, because they would much rather give the job to someone who really, really wants to work here and is going to be really committed to the job than someone who's a bit like, yeah, I'll just come here for a few years, get some qualifications, and then go off and do something completely different. And I'm not really fussed about Deloitte. They're basically all the same, so who cares? I'll go work for PwC. It's fine. That they're not interested in that. The other things they're not interested in is talking about the offices being near where you live. They don't care. They reasonably expect you to perhaps relocate. If you are really dedicated, you would be willing to relocate, ideally. Earning money, becoming a partner, they don't want to hear that. Anything that suggests you're not committed to the company and you're going to not stay there very long. And anything that just, when you think about it, does Deloitte really care? So if you're talking about anything like working locally, for example, that we've mentioned, if it's not going to increase the success of the firm and make you more effective, don't include it in your answer because they're really not interested. So if you get all these elements in your answer, you're going to survive this question, which is notoriously badly done because people don't appreciate the differences between the big four companies. What do you know about Deloitte's another question that they often ask, though they may not ask it directly, but they will expect throughout the interview that you will be demonstrating a good knowledge of their firm. And the way that you can stand out on this question is by working through the diagram on the right. So bad answers are things that everyone knows. So if you say Deloitte is an accounting firm, that's very simplistic, not entirely accurate, and doesn't capture everything, and it's just unimpressive. You want to move out into the things that some people know, so you should be able to quote their turnover, you should know all their office locations, you should know what different businesses they're involved in, you should be able to name the chairman and CEO, what Deloitte was formed from, so their history, and what makes them unique as some starting points. But then to score really highly, you really need to be educating the interviewer. So you have to be telling them things that they don't necessarily know. So make sure you know all of the basics and then drop in some facts that perhaps even the interviewer doesn't know. And if you're telling them something they didn't know, they're going to be impressed with your knowledge. And so my number one tip is that Deloitte puts out a series of annual reports. They don't just have one annual report. They have lots of reports breaking down various things about the firm. And if you read those, you're going to get such amazing information. And just literally by reading them start to finish, you're going to be fabulously knowledgeable and you're going to stand out a mile. So do your preparation, have a read of all those. And when you go into your interview, you'll have loads to talk about. And so let's move on to the last question before we look at some questions that you could perhaps ask at the end of the interview. And that is the idea that you're going to have multiple deadlines and tasks at once. And how are you going to manage that? So it's a difficult question, but there's four things that I would recommend that you mention. So you're going to talk about having some sort of system for short, medium, and long-term planning. So you might have a spreadsheet, you might use Gantt charts, you might have some system that says, right now I need to get this done straight away. Once I've done the short-term immediate things, I'm going to be working on the medium-term things, and these medium-term things are going to contribute to a long-term goal. So you'll have lots of little goals that are going to get you to that successful end project. So you're going to have some sort of system that means that you're working rationally through all your different tasks. You're going to look at strategies for working smarter. If you don't know what that means, I'd recommend you look that up and just pick a couple of smart working strategies that you're going to make use of. You're going to organize your priorities, and you're going to do that mainly in terms of business impact. So, what's going to have the biggest impact on the firm? What's going to have very small impact? And therefore, you're going to organize your work around that. And you're also just going to mention that you've got grit and determination, that you're not afraid of hard work. And sometimes projects really need to be done in a time critical way. It's very important to a client. And so sometimes you are going to work late and you're going to make sure that that's delivered on time, on budget, as expected. So you've got that grit, you've got the determination and that work ethic that means that you're going to get through what you need to get through. And so if you mention those four elements, they're going to be confident you know what you're talking about. And lastly, I'm going to finish with a bonus, which is some good questions to ask. So I would recommend that you read through these and pick the ones that you think are most appropriate to you. Remember, the important thing is always to ask at least one question based on something that's come up in the interview. So throughout the interview, if you ever wonder about something, take a mental note and ask it at the end. So you've got to show that you're engaging in a two-way conversation and that you're listening to them, and you don't want your questions to come across like they're just been memorized. So you want to adapt these slightly as well. But one has to be spontaneous at least. A question that I always quite like is, can you describe the attributes of a highly effective Deloitte employee? So you're basically asking them, what do you think an amazing employee looks like? And there is a little bit of scope there to just remind them at the end of the interview how you actually match that. And you have to be careful about how you do it, but it is a great opportunity to just remind some key points. So hopefully this video has been very helpful to you. Best of luck in your Deloitte interview, and thank you very much for watching.